Welcome to Concho Valley Crossover. I'm Jaden Hart. That's Rachel Turnock. We're going to talk some volleyball and soccer today.
Yeah, we're going to dive into some Angelo State volleyball. We're going to talk a little high school volleyball today as well. And then also some Angelo State soccer, which they're off to an awesome start to this season, along with Angelo State volleyball. The Bells, they had a long road trip in Colorado. They spent a lot of time in Colorado last week, starting out at Adams State on Tuesday in Alamosa, Colorado. And then they finished off the weekend at the Mountain Lion Invitational. A lot of matches in a very short time.
That's what, four matches, and it looks like 3 days. But, still, you go from the fact that they're on the road, you're not sleeping in your own bed, and anytime it's a long trip, you're kind of just fatigued probably by the end of the week. But, so far they have looked very good this season.
Yeah, they're 8-1 on the season. Just that one loss coming to Colorado School of Mines on Saturday. It was a sweep, but if you look at that match, that first set that they had against School of Mines, the final of that was 31-29. So, ASU didn't go down easy in that. I know when we talked to head coach Chuck Waddington on Monday at the Angelo State presser, he said that they were pretty disappointed with that loss to Mines because, of course, he want to come back to San Angelo 9-0 instead of 8-1. But he, did say the one good thing about a loss is you learn a lot about your team. You learn about what you need to do better, what you need to work on. And especially with this week, it's a big week for them with Lone Star Conference play starting up on Saturday, Friday.
Yeah, was that a road trip with West Texas and then Eastern New Mexico. And I'm really not sure, to be honest, how either of those teams are supposed to be this season.
Yeah.
I know in years past, from what I generally have a general understanding of the Lone Star Conference, WT is good at most sports that they compete in. They're good at soccer. They obviously have done very well in basketball. Football in the past, they've been, hit or miss, but they're still at the top. With volleyball, I guess that's one of those things that I'm not really as familiar with kind of how they have done in the past. It looks like just going on Angelo State's website and just kind of checking out what the record has been so far. They're 8-16 is their record all time. So WT's kind of had their number in a way. It looks like smallest. They're on a 2-match win streak though against WT. So this thing. One of the things that we've talked about with Coach Waddington was how they were getting used, or it's going to be interesting getting used to kind of how conference is set up this year with the addition of all of those Heartland schools. That's one of those things where you get new opponents. There's been times when they face these teams, but it's different in a sport like volleyball where you're getting different players and it's more talent based. I'm not saying that this other sports aren't, but individual players can make the team overall better like any sport, but it really does make a huge impact if they get a big recruit that comes in that can completely change the narrative for a team. So that's one of the things that he really was saying that they wanted to look at was the challenge of actually having different pods and as he called them instead of districts or divisions. But, I think, right now, just looking at how they've started this season, I don't think that there's really much that he could be disappointed with.
Yeah, and, again, the fact that they just being up in Colorado for that long, I'm from Colorado. Of course, you got to deal with altitude. Every time I go home just to visit my family, I'm just not going to lie, going up a flight of stairs whenever I'm at the airport running around, I get a little bit winded, so I can't imagine just coming from Texas, being at altitude, playing in a volleyball match for several days, playing several volleyball matches over several days. The altitude can get to you. That's why I always tell people drink a lot of water when you go there.
Stay hydrated, of course.
But the fact that they had just one loss out of, if you go back to their Adams State match, out of 5 matches, I mean, that's huge. And with conference play starting up, Coach said, what better way to start out conference play than with a rival, West Texas A&M?
Yeah, and I think that's really one of the cool things that I enjoy about the pod system that they're kind of doing with the Lone Star Conference is that it's regionalized. So you do get, while I think Tarleton isn't in their pod, which is sad because that's another one of those that you look forward to playing, and they'll still play each other. It just won't be the same, they won't play as many times, and it will rotate. But, having WT in there, that's huge. Lubbock Christian, I mean, that will end up, I feel like, turning into a rivalry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially, I mean, Lubbock not just feels not like it's right up the road, but just, I think with LCU being in there, it's definitely going to be just another fun match to add for the Bells, and it's just competition that, of course, they see in when it comes to regional matchups, but just now that it's conference, it's just like it adds so much more to it, and so it's going to be exciting, but with ASU just having a great success on the road last week, the fact that they have to go up to Canyon and then Portales, New Mexico, I mean, they can obviously handle the road really well.
Yeah, and it will be a really tough, not a tough task, but it will be tougher than kind of what they've faced so far, I think. I think Mines, you saw, like, they're a good volleyball program. But you look at, I'm taking a peek at WT, what they've accomplished this year. Their only loss, they were on a 7-game streak of their own, or 5-game streak, and then so they're 6-1 on the year. They lost to Washburn, which is the 4th-ranked team in Division II, and they got swept in straight sets. So if that says anything about the team that they're about to face, and they're playing a lot of the same opponents, Adams State, Fort Lewis, some of these others not the same, but the competition level has been around the same thing. So you're going to get, this is probably going to be a really exciting matchup. And one of the things that I was going to kind of bring up was before the season started, Coach Waddington really mentioned the fact that they've got younger players on this team, and a lot of younger players that have a lot of talent. It's not that they haven't been able to recruit in the past, and I mean you've seen this team be dominant in the past, where they're losing 7-6 games in a season. I mean, I think when I looked up when I first got here, Waddington's record, it blew my mind, just like the win percentage that he has. But one of the things that he did say was that he hasn't really ever had the opportunity to have a recruiting class where there's 20-something, or not 20-something, but a larger recruiting class where every single one of those girls can go in and fill a void and compete even for a starting spot in their first semester. Which, I guess the part for me that is interesting, and I think it will play out in their favor in the long run, because you can never predict injuries, and you obviously don't want anything like that to happen. But since they are more deep, and even getting to play these conference matches early on will give them more experience. Getting those girls experience against opponents like WT, and I'm not saying that they're going to get in and get playing time right away. Obviously, the best players are going to play against an opponent like that. But I do think it's kind of cool that they're having an opportunity where they're playing district matches, or not district, I'm still in the high school gear, conference matches earlier on, so that they are getting experience against teams that they're going to face more, and that will stand in your way of probably getting into the postseason.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about, younger players or just players that are, stepping up, and I mean, looking back at Megan Parker, the senior setter, when she was a sophomore, I mean, she just came in and just dominated. I mean, she's just been such a huge part of, Angelo State volleyball, and I mean, she was the conference preseason setter of the year for a reason, and it's just, I mean, I remember whenever she first got here, she just it's just like, wow, like it's just incredible how she's just so young and she just took off. So it's just, Coach Waddington knows where to find him. So
yeah, he really does. I mean, I guess that's a little bit of the direction I was trying to go with my point. I feel like I got a little bit on a tangent, but the fact that they're again getting these young players in there, and he's making a point that this is one of the more talented classes that he's had, and that it's a large class. That's a very big statement for him, or a big statement for him to say, because he's had the success in the past where you talk about kids or girls like Megan Parker as a sophomore already, getting out and making moves and becoming a leader on the team, and look what that's turned out. She's setter of the preseason setter of the year, and she's off to a hot start, and the team's off to a hot start. Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things where you have to look at that as being just the dynasty, or I don't know if you would call it a dynasty, but the just level of program that he has put in place here. That, I mean, you could make an argument that they are one, if not then they're one of the most successful programs that Angelo State has.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, you go in the Janelle Center and you can just see all the banners, and I mean, you just see like Angelo State volleyball. It's just, I mean, the energy that they bring to the Janelle Center. I mean, they talk so much about, of course, there's nothing like a home crowd, and they talk about the fans that they bring. They had 1,000 fans at one of their scrimmages this year.
Wow.
Which, that's a scrimmage.
That's ridiculous. I cannot believe that.
It's just, the crowd brings the energy, and then they bring energy towards the crowd. So it's just, that's why I absolutely love going to ASU volleyball matches. They're so fun to be at, because they just, they just have so much energy. And
yeah, no, he even made it kind of a point that I need to get there and at least experience one of those games, because not a knock on UTPB at all. They're obviously having fun right there. Yeah. But UTPB is what I have experience with Lone Star Conference volleyball, and UTPB's gym is not necessarily the best. We got a little bit of frozen video, but hey, there it goes.
Freezing. There we go.
But yeah, no, I just think that you look at just how it's set up, and I mean, even this is beginning of the year, and you can tell there's a decent turnout for these games. You said they get loud, and it's just one of those things that you have to experience. And I think that one of the things that makes Angelo State such a unique program, and it's really just the Lone Star Conference with their Division II sports. And I mean, you talk to people that are. You came from a Division II school, correct?
Division I, University of Northern Colorado.
I don't know why I thought it was
it's
Division II.
It's pretty much. I mean, it's the Big Sky Conference, so you could.
I thought. See, I don't even know what I'm talking about, people.
It's pretty much Big Sky Conference. That's why. It's Division I, but
it's like a lower, and a lot of the Lone Star Conference schools, they are built wouldn't necessarily call them D1 programs, because they don't have necessarily obviously the funding, the facilities and stuff like that, but the community support behind it's really cool. I guess that's where I was trying to get at. Is you look at Angelo, I know Tarleton has the same thing, West Texas A&M. Yep. Those are just the ones that I've experienced. UTBB, they're still trying to build a program there, so they got behind the basketball team, but it is a work in progress. Right. But it's really cool to see not only the student body just really get behind their teams, but also members of the community coming out, the high school coaches coming out and watching the games. It's really cool, and I mean, they deserve it, because, like I said, his record blew my mind. So just a little bit, going over just this week at a glance. On Friday, they've got 4 matches in 7 days a week. So starting on the 20th, that's Friday, West Texas A&M, 6 o'clock, and Canyon. Then the following day, they'll make the trip over to Portales, which not too far of a drive, but still, I mean, you're on the road, you're not getting to sleep in your own bed, and after playing a match, depending on how that can go, there can be mental fatigue there. So, it's one of those things where you've got Western New Mexico, and I take a look at Western New Mexico and kind of how they've done this year. Western New Mexico, or not Western, it's Eastern New Mexico. I don't know why I'm calling them Western New Mexico. The Eastern New Mexico is closer. They are in the conference, but they're in the same pod. So it looks like Eastern really hasn't necessarily gotten off to the greatest start. Right now they're 2-6 overall, and they just snapped what was a 5-game losing streak just this past week against Pace. They were in a tournament. So, and I hadn't even heard of Pace, and I try to try to be pretty familiar with D2 schools. And then then after that little short road trip on Friday, Saturday, Wednesday they come home. First home match against a Lone Star Conference team, and it happens to be Lubbock Christian, that new Lone Star Conference opponent. So that's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
The fact that that's what I mean about being able to potentially have a new rival within the conference. Lubbock Christian this year, they are, I had it pulled up, they're off to a 5-3 start. Colorado Mesa, Mines beat them. And then they went on a little bit of a winning streak, and then Dixie State beat them. So another one of those teams where, based on their non-conference, you could say, okay, maybe Angelo can get by. That looks like a chance for back-to-back wins, maybe 3 in a row, depending on how that game goes with WT. The real matchup is going to be WT, and then they wrap the week up Friday, again home against UT Permian Basin. So really, it looks like I said, the real test for them for this first week of conference is going to be a WT, and it's that first game. So
starting it right out with the rival match, like Coach Waddington said. So
which is good. I think I would rather have WT at the beginning than at the end of a week stretch.
100%.
Because you're getting, and then if you really want to get into it, then their next weekend, next Saturday, they have another home match against Western.
Yeah.
So that's basically 5 matches in a span of 8 days. That's going to get exhausting. And if you had WT even at home to end that little stretch of games to start conference, these are important ones because all 3 of those teams, including Western New Mexico, the 4th, are all in their pod.
Yep.
So these are big games. These count. Obviously, all conference games count, but these really matter. So big games this week.
It is 100%. So hopefully they have a good week of practice and start out Friday with a win over West Texas A&M.
Yeah. So and just a little. To wrap up our volleyball talk, just a little bit about some of the high school teams. Braun and Central got their district started. Central picking up a win against Haltom.
Yeah.
That's big for them. And, I kind of – you have more experience being around this team in the past and kind of know the coach that Connie Bozart is.
Yeah, Coach Bo, I mean, she's done such a good job, especially with this new district. I mean, I know it's their second year in this district, but just the fact that have more experience of traveling when it comes to, when the travel in the playoffs than, these teams in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, like Haltom, whenever the district realignment happened, she was saying, like, hey, we've been on the road. We're, these new teams, these Dallas-Fort Worth teams haven't been on the road as much as we have. So she was very confident with in her team that they were able to handle the road trips very well because they play on Tuesdays and Fridays. So Tuesdays especially long days, but
that's tough. I mean, we've talked about it just like before, just like in the newsroom and stuff, because I'm from Midland, so I'm used to Central being in the district with all of those schools. I mean, that's how it was for me in high school, and I went to Midland High, and I was sad that they were out of that district because
it's fun.
I mean it's a lot of fun, and then on top of that, you look at just the amount of traveling, the sheer traveling that has to go on because you're not only just going over to Midland, which is an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. You're going to the Metroplex on a weekday. And whatever traffic that causes, and it's a
school night,
It's not. I mean, I want to say, it's just not fair in a way.
Yeah.
Like they talked about it. That's the whole goal of the UILs, to make things fair, and it really puts Central and even Abilene High in a disadvantage. So I'm thinking that this year though they're like they're at a chance where they can just pick right up. They look good
Yeah.
so far. They have like 3 losses overall, maybe 3 or 4.
I mean, and like you said, Coach Bo, I mean, she does a great job with them, and they, I mean, they're good. So they're fun to watch. We talk about.
Thought I had it.
Oh, there we go. No, wait.
Yeah.
We talk about volleyball. Angel State volleyball, of course, is fun to watch. I mean, high school volleyball is fun to watch just because anything could happen. So.
Yeah, and then so they're out. Central out to an early win over a district opponent. That's big, getting things started on the right note. For Bront, on the other hand, a team who is good. Bront volleyball has surprised me. Not just because I thought they were going to be bad or something going into the year, but just not being familiar with the area. I didn't know really who was going to be good. And the way that Bront played in tournaments before things got started, kind of my first peek at everyone. And then Miles played well also.
Miles, the Lady Bulldogs, they're
They played against Central very well, competed against Central. But Bront ended up dropping their first match against Harper on Saturday of district.
Okay.
Which, I mean, it's still early. I mean, we're sitting here and talking about conference and district with these teams, and while it's important to get wins, these are the ones that count. With a volleyball season, it extends. You have some time that just one loss isn't going to hurt you. And a team like Bront, they're good. It just bounce back and make sure you don't go on a stretch where you're losing those games. We'll just before we wrap everything up, we've got a little bit left. We'll make a transition over to some ASU soccer because you were out at that game on Sunday.
Yeah, against a team that we were talking about earlier, Colorado School of Mines out of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. They just play Angelo State a lot. But actually for Angelo State soccer, this is only the second meeting between the two programs, which was on Sunday at ASU's place. They played each other last year up in Golden, and the Ore Diggers beat the Bells the Ore Diggers beat the Bells last year. But ASU came out on top on Sunday, 1-0 was the difference maker, courtesy of this beautiful pass and beautiful goal by Allie Warren.
No, freeze frame her
love
acceleration.
That freeze frame though.
Yeah,
I don't know why it's frozen, but I love it because she was so excited.
That was actually perfect timing.
That wasn't even planned. I love it.
You gotta love when technology fails us all the time, and when it does, sometimes it's inconvenient. But hey, situations like that end up working out for us.
That was great. So no, it was. They scored quickly in the second half. I believe it was the 47th minute, which was like a minute and 7 seconds into the second half. They just came out ready to go. You just kind of felt it that they were about to score because it was scoreless in the first half, and then that goal was the difference maker. Kiera Miller, she had 8 saves. Mines did outshoot ASU 14-6, but all you need is just one goal to go in the back of the net, and that one did. So ASU moved to 3-1. They're off to St. Edward's on Saturday. We spoke with head coach Travis McCorkle at the presser on Monday, and even though St. Edward's, I think they just have 1 win on the season, he was saying that their record doesn't show that. The Hilltoppers did lose to Mines in overtime. So he knows that St. Edward's is a good team.
Yeah, St. Edward's a traditional they're good at soccer. Every year they're good at soccer. At least from what I can remember. I don't have a ton of history as far as covering soccer. Soccer being one of those sports that UTBB, another one that they just weren't competitive at while I was there and covering Lone Star Conference stuff. I do know that when they had a few matches against St. Edward's while they were still in the Heartland, because they were actually in the whole soccer conference was Heartland last year. Like there really wasn't a Lone Star Conference soccer. It was mainly Heartland teams. So they've had history with St. Edward's before, and St. Edward's, like I said, they're going to be. That should be a test, no doubt about that.
Yeah, they're going down to Austin to face them, and Actually, something that I actually found out about yesterday. So, we talk about the Lone Star Conference and just how it's such a strong Division II conference. And I believe that the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference does have some strong teams as well. So entering the game on Sunday, Colorado School of Mines women's soccer, before the Lone Star Conference expansion this year. Their record against Lone Star Conference teams in women's soccer was 14-2-2. So they had 14 wins, 2 losses, and 2 ties against Lone Star Conference teams. So they don't lose against Lone Star Conference teams very often.
And they beat St. Edwards just this past week.
Yeah, so that was, before this was, I guess, entering,
they played them
Sunday's
on Friday
match, and this was entering this year. So the 2 Lone Star Conference teams entering Sunday's match that have beaten Colorado School of Mines women's soccer were Texas Women's and Midwestern State. So Angelo State is now one of 3 teams in Lone Star Conference that have beaten the Ore Diggers in women's soccer. So
stat of the day.
It's just it's one of those things where it's just School of Mines. They're just women's soccer. They just have really good success against Lone Star Conference teams. Like West Texas A&M is 0-5 against School of Mines. Commerce is 0-2. Eastern is 0-2. They have 1 tie against them. So does Commerce. So it was just something really interesting that Mines does a really good job against Lone Star Conference teams.
Well, I mean, they're seventh in the country for a reason. I mean, you don't just end up there. I mean, I know it still is the beginning of the season, and a lot of it's based on how you did last season, and it does play a role. But you're not going to just remain in there. You'll eventually start losing games. I mean, St. Edwards, for example. That history of being a good program. They went out and scheduled Western Washington, the 11th ranked team, lost by a goal, and then lost to School of Mines, 7th ranked team. So they're coming in 1-3 to this match because they ended up losing to Regis too, who happened to beat Angelo State as well. So Regis could be a team too that deserves to be ranked. And just happens that because of preseason stuff, they just haven't been able to make a jump. But, you get wins against teams that are notoriously good. Yeah, you'll quickly make a move up there. And so St. Edwards, just because they come into this match 1-3, does not mean anything because they, we keep saying, traditional power. I think they were picked to win the conference, if I'm not mistaken. It was either WT, I think, to win the conference, and then St. Edwards to finish second.
Okay.
And then Eastern New Mexico always has a good soccer team, and they were good last year as well. So Eastern, and then I think Angelo was right there, 4th or 5th. But preseason stuff, we're actually going to finally get to see kind of how everyone's going to do with the conference getting started.
No, and I mean, like you said, Coach McCorkle said the same thing. St. Edwards, their record doesn't show it. They're 1-3, but like you just said, the fact that they lost to 2 ranked opponents, I mean.
Yeah, you got to take that into consideration any time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you can make the point with any sport. You play a harder non-conference in high school, non-district, before you get into your conference or district. You set yourself up to be tested, and when it does come time to play teams in your conference who have a little more incentive to beat you. I'm not saying that the incentive's not there to win non-conference games, but there's just something about playing rivals and something about playing teams that you're familiar with that just can set you over a certain extent of wanting to win, and it just carries you. Going into conference, if you're tested and you're ready to play your tougher teams in the conference, then you'll probably be ready. If you had a cakewalk of a schedule, then you could be 7-0 or 5-0 entering conference and then end up losing the rest of your games. Whereas, St. Edwards, they played some tough teams, 1-3 entering conference, probably be okay. They'll probably end up making the conference tournament and being just fine.
Yeah. So, this will be a huge test for ASU, especially with it being on the road, going down to Austin. So, again, like I said about volleyball, hopefully Angelo State Soccer has a good week of practice, fresh off that exciting win over Mines on Sunday, and then down to Austin on Saturday.
Yeah, and then we'll peek ahead just a bit to next week. They would get St. Mary's for their their third home match of the year, and then Texas A&M International, another new to the whole conversion of the LSC. St. Mary's as well. It's one of those teams. So we're getting some new teams, and then the familiar ones of WT and Eastern don't really poke their head in until late October. So they've got a chance before they get into some of their real rivalry matches.
Yeah.
That's about all the time. I know that's a little bit of a weird transition there to end it off, but that's everything I've got to say. Do you have anything else that you're wanting to add to this?
No, that's it. Both ASU soccer and ASU volleyball off to great starts. Same with Central Volleyball and Bront Volleyball. It's just, it's exciting to see. It's fun to cover. And, it's just hopefully they can just keep doing their thing.
Yeah, no, and we'll make sure, obviously newscasts where you can catch highlights of this kind of stuff. If you're interested and you like the webcast, continue to follow it, because if it's not me or Rachel doing it, Matt and Ryan for KLST side of things, they'll be on talking about it. We'll switch it up and definitely be keeping everyone informed with everything going on in the Lone Star Conference and Angelo State sports. With that being said, though, that's going to do it for today's episode of the Concho Valley Crossover. That's Rachel. I'm Jaden. So we will end on that note and sign off.
Thanks for watching.